All right, so today we're going to do a deep dive on temporary protected status. TPS,
Mm.
that program that gives people a safe haven in the U.S. when their home countries are, well, facing some serious issues.
All right.
But the thing we're looking at today is, could Canada be a viable option for these people for a more permanent, future?
Yeah.
And we've got some really interesting articles here that give us some information about TPS holders, who they are, what kind of work they do.
Right.
And we're going to see if those skills match up with what Canada's looking for.
All
So
right.
just to kick things off right away, the
Yeah.
largest group of TPS holders in the U.S. is actually from El Salvador.
It is really interesting. It's actually a very diverse group.
Okay.
And TPS is granted for all sorts of reasons.
Yeah.
I mean, from earthquakes like the one in Haiti
Right.
to the civil war in Sudan.
Oh, wow.
It's temporary, but it can be renewed,
Okay.
sometimes for years and years.
Oh, wow.
But it never leads to a green card or citizenship in the U.S.
Oh. So it's kind of like a safety net, but a safety net with some holes in it.
Right.
That's got to be, pretty stressful for people.
Absolutely. And especially when you think about all the legal battles there have been.
Yeah.
Like when the Trump administration tried to end TPS for a bunch of countries.
Right, right.
That uncertainty is a big factor.
Yeah. I mean, if I were living in that kind of uncertainty, I'd be looking for a more stable solution too.
Yeah.
And that's where Canada comes in, right?
Exactly.
I mean, they've got that reputation for being so welcoming to immigrants, and they really value diversity.
Yeah, they do. And they have this very organized immigration system that's designed to attract skilled workers.
Okay.
But here's the thing about Canada. Temporary visas aren't really practical for TPS holders.
Really?
Because to get one, you have to prove that you're going back to your home country,
Oh, right.
which is kind of the opposite of what TPS is all about.
Yeah.
Plus, the financial requirements are tough.
So it's not just a quick trip across the border.
Yeah.
For TPS holders, they got to aim for that, permanent residency.
Right.
That's where the real security is.
Yes.
And of course, the chance to eventually become a citizen.
Exactly. And that's where things get really interesting.
Okay.
If you look at the jobs that a lot of undocumented immigrants have in the U.S.,
Right.
and remember, a lot of them might be eligible for TPS,
Yeah.
their skills often match up with industries that Canada really needs workers.
Oh.
We're talking construction, agriculture, hospitality, manufacturing, even caregiving.
So wait, are you saying that like a construction worker in Miami could get a job building houses in like Toronto?
It's a real possibility.
Wow.
Canada has this shortage of skilled tradespeople, and they have these programs
Okay.
specifically to attract them.
Okay.
The Atlantic Immigration Pilot, for example, that's for Atlantic Canada.
Right.
They're looking for people in the trades.
Wow.
There's also the Rural and Northern Immigration Pilot
Mm-hmm.
that targets smaller communities that need workers. These programs recognize that practical skills are valuable,
Right.
and they make it easier for people with those skills to get permanent residency.
Okay, so it's not just construction, then you mentioned agriculture, hospitality.
Right. A lot of TPS holders have been working in these sectors for years in the U.S.
Right.
They have the experience. They're reliable.
Mm-hmm.
They're ready to work hard.
Right.
These are the qualities that Canada is looking for.
So we've kind of established that Canada could be a real possibility for some TPS holders.
Yeah.
But how do they make it happen? How
Right.
do they actually get there?
Yeah.
I think we need to get into the details,
Yeah.
the stuff that could really make or break someone's chances of starting a new life in Canada.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So let's talk about those Canadian immigration pathways.
Okay.
The first one is the express entry system.
Okay.
Imagine like a giant talent pool
Okay.
where people from all over the world,
Mm-hmm.
they show off their skills,
Right.
and Canada picks the best match.
So it's kind of like a competition.
Yeah, you could say that
Hi.
you earn points based on things like your age, education, work, experience, language skills.
Mm-hmm.
That Canada draws every couple of weeks, inviting the highest scoring candidates to apply for permanent residency.
That's really organized.
It's efficient and transparent.
I'm starting to see why Canada's immigration system gets so much praise.
Yeah.
But for someone coming from, a TPS background,
Right.
what do they need to focus on to boost their chances in this express entry system?
Well, language proficiency is huge.
Okay.
You need to prove you've got a good grasp of either English or French.
Okay.
And there are standardized tests you have to take.
Right.
And education matters too.
Okay.
A college degree or even a trade certification can really help.
So it's not just about work experience, but also the credentials.
Exactly. And of course, relevant work experience is critical,
Right.
especially if it aligns with those in-demand jobs I talked about.
Yeah.
But here's where it gets interesting. Canada awards points for something called adaptability.
Adaptability. So like how well you can handle Canadian winters.
That might help, but
Yeah.
seriously,
Okay.
adaptability points are about showing that you've got what it takes to thrive in Canada.
Okay.
It could be things like having family already living there,
Okay.
or maybe you studied in Canada before,
Mm-hmm.
or even if your spouse has strong language skills.
Oh, interesting.
Even things like community involvement or volunteer work
Right.
can show that you're ready to integrate.
So it's not just ticking boxes, it's about showing you're genuinely invested in becoming part of Canada.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
love that.
Yeah.
But what about those folks who might not score high enough in Express Entry?
Right.
What other options are there?
Well, Canada has this other great system called Provincial Nominee Programs, or PNPs.
Okay.
Each province and territory gets to set its own immigration criteria,
Okay.
tailored to its own needs.
So like each province has its own mini immigration program.
Pretty much, yeah. It's about finding the right fit.
Yeah.
For example, if you're a skilled tradesperson,
Right.
a province like Saskatchewan or Manitoba might be a great option.
Okay.
They often have PNPs that target people without job offers,
Really?
as long as your skills align with their needs.
So if you want to build houses in Saskatchewan, that could be your way in.
Yeah, exactly. PNPs can be a fantastic route for TPS holders
Okay.
because a lot of them have in-demand skills, but maybe they don't have a Canadian education
Okay.
or enough points for Express Entry.
So we've got Express Entry, we've got P&Ps.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any other pathways?
There's one more that can be a game changer,
Okay.
especially for those who are open to learning new things.
Okay. I like where this is going.
We're talking about studying in Canada.
Now, how does hitting the books lead to permanent residency?
Okay, so you can get a Canadian study permit
Right.
to enroll in a designated college or university.
Mm-hmm.
But here's the key. After you graduate, you're often eligible for a post-graduation work permit,
Okay.
or PGWP.
PGWP.
It's an open work permit that lets you gain Canadian work experience in almost any field.
So you're saying that by going to school, you could gain new skills and open the door to working in Canada?
Exactly.
That's amazing.
It is. And once you've got some Canadian work experience,
Yeah.
you become eligible for programs like the Canadian Experience Class,
Okay.
which is designed for people who've worked in Canada.
Right.
And guess what?
What?
The Canadian Experience Class feeds right back into that Express Entry system we talked about.
Oh, wow. So it's like a double win.
It is. You boost your skills and your immigration points.
Canada really rewards people who are willing to invest in themselves and their future in Canada.
They do. They're looking for people who are committed.
Okay, so we've covered Express Entry PMPs and the study to work route.
Right.
What about family ties?
Okay, so family sponsorship is definitely a pathway,
Okay.
but it has its own rules.
Okay.
The sponsor has to be a Canadian citizen or permanent resident,
Right.
and they have to prove they can financially support the person they're sponsoring. It's usually for spouses, partners, parents, grandparents, dependent children.
So it's not just about having a cousin in Canada.
No, there are criteria.
Okay.
Family sponsorship is about reuniting families,
Right.
not just bringing in new immigrants,
Okay.
but it's something to consider.
Okay, so let's say someone's listening to this and they're thinking, okay, Canada sounds good. I'm intrigued.
Yeah.
What's their first step?
Gather your documents.
Okay.
Make sure you have your passport, birth certificate, educational diplomas or certificates,
Right.
any work experience documents.
Okay.
Having everything organized makes the application process much smoother.
And knowing those Canadian job codes is important too, right?
Absolutely.
Like a cook in the U.S. might have a different title in Canada.
Right. Canada uses the National Occupational Classification, or NOC.
Okay.
It's like a dictionary of every job in Canada
Okay.
with a specific code.
Right.
You need to find the NOC code that matches your job
Okay.
and use it on your application.
So documents, research, job plans, it's starting to feel real.
Yeah.
Any final words of wisdom before we wrap up this part of our deep dive?
Don't try to do this alone.
Oh.
Canadian immigration can be complex.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of details.
Right.
Talking to an immigration lawyer or consultant is worth it.
Okay.
He can help you figure out which program is best,
Right.
make sure your application is perfect,
Mm-hmm.
and honestly just save you stress.
Solid advice. We're talking about a life-changing decision here.
We are.
Having expert guidance can make all the difference. We've really covered a lot of ground, haven't we?
Yeah, we have.
From TPS to the different ways to get permanent residency in Canada.
Yeah.
But I think there's a bigger picture here. This whole idea of moving from TPS in the U.S. to a new life in Canada.
Right.
It's not just about, filling out forms. It's about people making big decisions.
Yeah, absolutely. It's about real lives.
Real lives. Yeah. What are the, the effects of this on the people involved.
Right.
And on both countries even.
Well, for a lot of TPS holders,
Mm-hmm.
this could be a chance to finally, breathe,
Yeah.
to build a future where they don't have to worry all the time.
To feel secure?
Yeah, to put down roots,
Right.
contribute to their communities, and to have the same opportunities as everyone else.
And for Canada, this could be a chance to welcome these skilled and motivated people
Exactly.
who are ready to work hard and become part of, the Canadian story.
Yeah, and we've talked about their labor shortages. These folks could really help fill those gaps.
Definitely. So Canada wins, but what about the U.S.?
Right.
What happens when people who've been working and living in the U.S. for years decide to leave?
That's where it gets complicated.
Right.
There are definitely different points of view on this.
Okay.
Some people say that the U.S. benefits from the work that TPS holders do,
Yeah.
especially in those industries with worker shortages.
Right.
They talk about their contributions,
Mm-hmm.
paying taxes, raising families, being part of their communities.
Right. And on the other side, you have people saying that losing these people could hurt the U.S. economy.
Exactly.
That it's a brain drain.
Yeah, that the U.S. is losing talented people.
Yeah. Who could be doing even more if they had a path to stay here permanently.
Right. It's a complex issue with no easy answers.
Yeah. And then there's the moral question, too.
Right.
What responsibility does the U.S. have to these people who
Yeah.
they've given protection to?
Especially when that temporary status can go on for years.
It's tough all around, but I guess it comes down to individual choices.
I think so.
Each person has to weigh their options.
Yeah.
Think about what's important to them and decide what's best.
Right. For themselves and their families.
Right. What advice would you give to someone who's trying to make this decision?
I would say do your research,
Okay.
be informed, and don't be afraid.
Mm-hmm.
Explore your options, both in the U.S. and in Canada.
Yeah.
Talk to experts.
Mm-hmm.
Connect with people who've been through this.
Yeah.
And really think about what's most important to you. Is it stability,
Mm-hmm.
opportunity, a sense of belonging?
Yeah.
Once you know what you want,
Right.
you can start making decisions that fit those values.
This is a good reminder that, behind all the policies and the numbers, there are real people
Absolutely.
whose lives are affected by this.
And those stories are important.
Yeah.
They remind us that immigration isn't just an idea.
Right.
It's about people trying to find a better life.
Yeah.
And contributing and making their dreams come true.
Well, I think that's about all the time we have for today's deep dive.
Yeah, it's been a good one.
We've looked at TPS,
Mm-hmm.
Canada's potential as a new home,
Yeah.
and what it all means for both countries.
It's been a fascinating discussion.
But as always, we want to leave you with something to think about.
Right.
A question that maybe you haven't considered. Okay, so here it is.
Mm-hmm.
What else, besides the legal stuff and the money stuff, might make a TPS holder decide to stay in the U.S.
Mhm.
or go to Canada?
Right.
Things like cultural ties, community support,
Mm-hmm.
personal networks.
All those things matter.
How do those things affect such a big decision?
It's something to think about.
That's something to think about until next time. Keep those minds curious.
Right.
And remember, the world is full of interesting connections just waiting to be discovered.
Yeah.